Good afternoon, everybody. Hello, ciao. How are you all doing? This is Dino Vasectomy. I'm a big Paul McCartney and Beatles fan, and today what I'm going to do is talk about, no, not McCartney 2, but his follow-up album, the incredibly fantastic, brilliant, super song-produced album called Tug of War, which was released on this day in 1982. So that's the 26th of April 1982. Back then, I was a teenager, still at school. I bought the previous album, McCartney 2, on cassette. Actually, my father bought it for me when I was in Rome, in Italy. But this is the first time I purchased a Paul McCartney vinyl album when it came out. I think I'd got McCartney, The Interview. And I might have picked up Venus and Mars and Wings Greatest. But for a new studio album by Paul McCartney, it was very, very exciting. Cannot describe how exciting it was getting this album. 1980 had been a terrible year for Paul. Been bust for drugs. That was bad enough. Wings were kind of disbanding, even though it wasn't official. And obviously, of course, there was a tragic death of his bestest friend. Helped change the world, Mr. John Lennon. Dreadful, dreadful year for Paul. So it had been a few years since Paul had an album. In fact, 81 was the first year, I think, since that Paul hadn't released an album of new material since 1963. I think that's correct. Correct me if I'm wrong. You may be aware I've got a Facebook page as well coming up, the World of Paul McCartney, so join that. But today, as I said, I'm talking about Tug of War. The session, the day John got killed, Paul was in Air Studios and George Martin said to him, "Do you want to cancel doing the session?" Paul said, he said, "No, I want to carry on recording." So what he recorded was Rain Clouds. That's what he worked on in the studio, and he worked with Paddy Malone of the Chieftains playing the, I've written it down because I never say the word and I can't even read my writing here, but I did write what the instrument is. It's the pipes, Uralian pipes. I can't even read my own writing. So he worked on that. So Paul wrote that with Denny, but Denny wasn't credited on it originally. It was only years later that that was done. Session started at Air Studios in London and moved on to Montserrat. I've lost my train of thought now, what I'm going to do already. Tug of War was received great critical acclaim when it came out, and had some great musicians. Reunited with George Martin, the first time since Live and Let Die, the single, but first time on an album since Get Back Stroke Let It Be. Also is reunited with Ringo. He'd previously worked with Ringo in 81, doing the film The Caller and writing some tracks for him. But on record, he hadn't done anything since Abbey Road, I believe. Correct me again if I'm wrong. There's always something. Well, actually, no, Dino, they did do something. Yeah, actually, Paul did help Ringo on his solo stuff, didn't he? But Ringo hadn't been on the McCartney album. So when it came out to massive critical acclaim. But before it was released, there was a single released, Ebony and Ivory, which again was a massive worldwide hit. Worldwide hit. Hit number one in the US, hit number one in the UK. Paul had previously been number one in the UK with Wings with Mull of Kintyre, but he hadn't had another number one. But in America, Paul had been to number one several times with Wings, and then he got to number one with Coming Up as well. I remember when this came out, I was very happy because it's actually number one on my birthday in May 1982. And on the B-side of Ebony and Ivory, which was written just by Paul, by the way. It wasn't written by Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder, which a lot of people think. It actually says featuring additional vocals by Stevie Wonder. I might remember my friend at school was a big Stevie Wonder fan saying, "Oh, why isn't it say Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder?" So everyone says it is a duet, but it says Paul McCartney, additional vocals by Stevie Wonder. Why it's not a duet, I don't know. Maybe it's because it wasn't written together. And there's the lyrics to it. There's a couple of inspirations for the song. One is that apparently Paul had a bit of a tiff with Linda, saying, "Why can't we get on like piano keyboards like black and white?" There was a lot of tension going on in the UK. A lot of that had happened. Look at the Specials and Ghost Town and the riots that are happening in England in the summer of, was it 80 or 81? So there's a lot of that going on. So again, it was about racial harmony, world harmony, peace, which Paul sang about a lot, as did John, and a lot of the Beatles songs. When it came out, it said it was gigantic. It was played everywhere. Fantastic video with Paul and Stevie filmed separately around the world. Excuse me, my throat keeps going up. The last few days I haven't been able to speak much, so I mean to do this for a while. But here we go. I'm onto it. So it was #1 around the world. And if I look at all my writing, I always put my notes down. So Ebony and Ivory, it was... I can't even read my... Nearly said it there. Can't read my notes here for positions around the world. But it got to #1, actually, in Finland, Iceland, France, Ireland, Israel, Japan, Norway, Spain, UK and US. In the UK, it sold 500,000 copies. In America, over 1 million copies. It received a Novello Award for International Hit of the Year. It was nominated for Single of the Year at the Grammys, but lost out to Toto's Rosanna, which is a great song with the Picaros on, who went on to work with Paul on Broad Street. Paul never really performed this live much. He did perform at the White House roughly 10 years ago for the president with Stevie. And he did do it, I think, when he was in Los Angeles on the world tour when he was doing Flowers in the Dirt. So it's not something Paul performs live. It actually got banned when apartheid was happening in the era around in South Africa. Because Stevie Wonder dedicated one of his songs to Nelson Mandela. So it's actually got banned there. On the 7-inch, as I say, you've got Paul and Stevie. Now, if you brought the 12-inch here, so besides Ebony and Ivory, on the back you've got Rain Clouds, and you've got Ebony and Ivory, but just with Paul singing it. There's no Stevie vocals on it. Incredible video, great song. Bit sickly sweet. It sold loads and it's a great sentiment, so what does it matter? They'll criticise Paul for whatever they do, but isn't it the people that speak? Isn't it the people that speak? And it's sold by the shed load. So Ebony and Ivory, what a great lead up to this incredible album, Tug of War. The cover's designed by Brian Clark. What I like about this cover, it's a photograph by Linda. Paul deeply lost in music there in the studio. I presume it's at Air Studios because Paul hadn't built his studio in Rye yet. But I like the red and blue, designed by Brian Clark, who worked for Hypnosis, however you want to say it, and they worked on various Wings albums as well as Pink Floyd, 10cc and many other people. And in fact, Brian Clark, what he did was as well, when Paul did his world tour, new world tour, so 89 and 93, he worked on the back design for that, for the Flowers in the Dirt. You may have seen it, and also some stained glass stuff that he did. So Brian Clark was a British painter, printmaker and architectural artist, born in Oldham in Lancashire. He designed this cover. I always think it's red and blue again, so like the Beatles' Red and Blue album. That's my theory. And it's kind of falling to pieces. Maybe, I'm sure Paul's life at that time was very, very strange, very disjointed, shall we say, and going through an emotional period we cannot imagine. So I always loved the cover, always found it incredible. Produced, as I say, by George Martin. Cover painting by Brian Clark. It was engineered by Jeff Emrick and assisted by John Jacobs. The sounds on the album Tug of War are absolutely stunning. The pianos bounce out, the guitars bounce out, even the coins bouncing up and down on The Pound Is Sinking. It's just stunning. Speaking of Jeff Emrick, this did belong to Jeff Emrick. I recently got some Jeff Emrick items. So this was Jeff Emrick's jacket. I will do a feature on Jeff Emrick because I've got quite a few bits of his items. And it'd be nice to have a feature on Jeff because his how should we say, engineering skills on McCartney, whether it be from Revolver, Pepper, Abbey Road, Band on the Run, Flaming Pie, and there's more, is incredible. And he always gets credit, but I might do a video on it. In fact, I will do a video. Anyway, so back onto the Tug of War album. I'm sure you got it. Have you got it on cassette, on vinyl? You got it on CD now? You're aware it's in the archive edition. There's some beautiful stuff in there, and there is another version of the Ebony and Ivory video where it's Paul doing it solo, sitting at a window. I always love this photo of Paul concentrating, obviously writing some lyrics. Now, I don't know if that's in Montserrat or if Paul and Linda had gone on holiday to Barbados, but it's a beautiful inner sleeve, and also, and there we go. That's in fact side one. It was released on Parlophone in the UK and Columbia in the US of A. I don't know what label it was listed on all of the countries around the world. Maybe you'll tell me. So it kicks off with the beautiful track Tug of War, which was also got released as a single. And the Tug of War, at the beginning of it, you hear some people having a tug of war contest. Don't know if you know what it is. Basically, you have a long piece of rope, and there's teams on either side pulling it, and there's a white line in the middle of it, and you have to defeat the other team pulling it to get over a line. That's what a basic tug of war is. And Eddie Klein actually recorded the Tug of War Championships, and I did write down where that was. Was it Huddersfield? There we go. It was the Huddersfield Tug of War Championships, December the 7th, 1980. So Eddie Klein recorded that. And I might do a feature on Eddie Klein as well, because I've got a beautiful flaming pie jacket that used to belong to him. So the album kicks off with the incredible title track, Tug of War, which didn't do well in the UK. In fact, it didn't do well around the world. I've written it down. In the UK, it got to 53. It got to 11 in Poland. In the US, it got to 53. Is that right? Have I written that down wrong twice? Who knows? Who knows what goes on in this head of mine? The Tug of War video, my opinion, if they'd spent more on the video and not just a simple thing of Paul strumming his guitar and ending a bit, and then bits from, is it Metropolis, the film, and King Kong's in it. I think if they'd spent a lot of money on the video, it would have been a massive hit. But it was the third single that was released, Tug of War. So that segues into Take It Away. What a song that is. Two drummers, brilliant Steve Gadd and Ringo Starr. In the video, you got John Hurt playing kind of a Brian Epstein kind of impresario. I bumped into, I was in Liverpool a few years ago. I was in the Hard Days Night Hotel, staying up there for my birthday, and John Hurt was in there. And I went and spoke to him. He was having a glass of red wine and working on a script. So I should have asked for his autograph, really. But sometimes you think, oh no, it's a bit childish asking for an autograph. So John Hurt played like McCartney's manager in the video. And lucky MPL Wings Fun Club members got invited to the video shoot at Elstree, where you got to see George Martin, Linda and everyone performing it live in front of you. And if you think of Paul, that was the only performance he'd done in front of an audience. That was his first time actually in front of an audience watching the show since Wings had played in '79, and he didn't really perform in front of an audience again live doing songs until Live Aid and Prince's Trust. So it's kind of like the studio years, isn't it, McCartney? 1980 to 85, and then in 85 he only did one gig. In 86 he did a couple of performances, but I digress. Love Take It Away, especially the horn section, absolutely incredible. It's beautiful how it segues from Tug of War into Take It Away. Third track, Somebody Who Cares. Now, I don't know if it's true, but apparently Paul and Denny had a fallout over this track because Denny said, well, not very nice words about it's not a great track, and they had a bit of a falling out. So maybe that was the beginning of the end for Paul and Denny, and as they say, is history. I think it's a beautiful acoustic track. I think some of the lyrics aren't that great on it, but again, the sentiment's there, isn't it? Next track, What's That You're Doing, written with Stevie Wonder. Paul would never have done this stuff without Stevie Wonder. It's very, very funky, and I guess it's opening Paul's audience up to a new audience, which is maybe Stevie Wonder's like more R&B stroke soul. Very, very funky feeling. I was looking on this on What's That You're Doing, and Paul plays bass, drums, electric guitar and vocals, and Stevie does synthesizers and vocals. Andy Mackay's doing the lyric. Andy Mackay's out of and he said Fleetwood Mac, Roxy Music, and background vocals Paul, Linda and Eric Stewart. Eric Stewart is involved a lot, and the reason being some overdubs and stuff was done at Strawberry Studios. Eric Stewart of 10cc fame, who worked with Paul many years later on Press to Play, quite heavily involved on this album. So we've gone through Tug of War, Take It Away, Somebody Who Cares, What's That You're Doing, and now we're on to Here Today. I'm sure you know why and what Here Today was written for. Written for his friend John Lennon, and whenever he sings it, he still sings it when he does concerts. Paul, please do some concerts. The whole world is waiting for you to do concerts. When Paul does Here Today, it's such an emotional song, absolutely beautiful. One thing I find strange on Here Today that Ringo and George didn't feature on it. Maybe Paul just wanted to keep it simple and acoustic. It would have been nice if George and Ringo had been on it. I know they'd done all those years ago, but would have been great if they reunited to do that. So that's side one of the album. As I say, the album was mainly recorded in January and February in Montserrat, Air Studios in Montserrat, and then it was overdubbed in London at Air Studios in Oxford Street, George Martin Studios. And Paul did get joined out there by various other people. I guess he wanted solitude and escapism from the press and everyone who were hassling him for the tragedy that occurred with John Lennon. The second single, as I said, was Take It Away. That one just there, backed with I'll Give You a Ring, which come from a Wings session. I think it was 73, 74. I've never liked the cover of that. Cup of tea, Vicar. But there we go. It's some nice pictures on the back. You've got Eric, Linda and Paul. You've got Steve Gadd and Paul and George Martin. Sir George Martin. That was issued on Parlophony. That was a UK number 15, US number 10. Canada got to number 2, but number 7 in Norway. That was released in June 82, and that was the second track, Take It Away. Now, Paul had issued a 12-inch with Wings, Good Night Tonight, and it issued a 12-inch of Temporary Secretary. Good Night Tonight had an extended version on. Temporary Secretary had a bonus track on. Hang on, was it Secret Friend or Check My Machine? Secret Friend, wasn't it? But with the 12 inches, I mean, the 12-inch of Take It Away, there's nothing new. Take It Away, I'll Give You a Ring and Dress You Up as a Robber. Now, if you buy singles and albums and McCartney's, you've already got it. Do you know what? Was there a 12-inch of Tug of War? I haven't got a 12-inch of Tug of War if it was available. So, I believe at the time, when 12 inches released, they counted towards your 7-inch sales. This would have helped it get up the charts. Great video, great song. I wish I'd have been at the fan club shoot. I wasn't. I know a few people that were, and I'm not even going to mention John Brett, a friend of mine for many, many years, because every time I mentioned Take It Away or Tug of War, he goes, oh, I was at the shoot. Love to have been at that. Love to have been at that. So side B of this incredible album, Ballroom Dancing, Big BD. What a track that is. I'm sure I read that it was muted to be released as a single. Ended up in a Broad Street film. Paul re-recorded it. There's a lengthy dance routine. How the piano bounces out of Ballroom Dancing. Absolutely incredible track. I do think Tug of War is Paul McCartney's greatest album. I said it's his greatest solo album. It's not a Wings album, it's a solo album. And I know he's working with other musicians, but there's just something incredible about this album. Jeff Emrick and George Martin, Paul, the emotional state he was in, his songwriting felt sincere, if that's the right word, sincere and heartfelt, really beautiful. And I know there's much stuff on Flaming Pie that is like that, and a few other solo albums, but this is a very, very special album. So Ballroom Dancing, I do like it in Broad Street where he says, was it wave the sword, and he writes the extra verse, well, the kids have grown to a better life. Now the boy's a man and the girl's a wife, and the summertime never seems to last. When you're riding on a rocket. You got to buy the Broad Street album to hear that. Paul does sing it better than me. Again, the nucleus of the band on here is you got Paul and Denny, Eric, Stewart. Narrations by Peter Marshall. Now, I guess Peter Marshall used to do ballroom announcements. But one of the great things on here, you got Jack Brimmer playing a clarinet gliss. That's my impersonation of a clarinet gliss. Ballroom Dancing, brilliant. Next track, The Pound is Sinking. Now, I love how the coins, that's me doing the coins. You know, if you throw a coin up and it twists or echoes. That's not the right words, but anyway, you know what happens when you drop a coin and it goes up and down. Takes a while to do. But what I love about this is, imagine like you become a McCartney fan in a few years' time, a new generation, and they might say to everyone, you know, okay, we know what a dollar is, we know what a pound is, and the ruble and the yen, but what is the lira? What is the drachma? What is a franc? What is a mark? All these currencies that have gone, but were captured in this song, singing about nations' currency. The pound is sinking, I think, is relevant to every single year of history, maybe even more so in the last few years with the EU. Don't go on about Brexit. Wanderlust. Now, what have I got to say about Wanderlust? Why Paul's never done that live? You tell me, Mr. McCartney. I think out of virtually all Paul's solo stuff, Wanderlust could possibly be the song that most fans want him to perform live. Never done. In fact, the same with Ballroom Dancing and Tug of War. Never performed live. So what's Wanderlust all about? What is Wanderlust? Well, you have to go back to the London Town album, don't you? When they're in the Virgin Islands and they're recording on ships. Apparently a captain did not want members of the band taking naughty substances. And there is a letter on here. Again, this is the poster that comes with the Wings London Town album. So get your London Town album out and find out what the inspiration between Wanderlust is. Should be performed live. In fact, anything performed live. In fact, when will you perform live? I'm fed up of asking. Oh, do you know, see what this box is just there? Can you read? If you can read what that box is, I might do a feature on that one of these days as well. Also, a couple of shout outs here. So Luca Paresi, his book is over there, the Paul McCartney sessions. Luca's got a new book coming out on around May the 5th or 6th, so I'd recommend getting that. Luca also worked with Paul McCartney. It's totally gone. On his singles box, the single box behind me as well. And if you haven't got the singles box, you got to pay a lot of money now. But Luca does a lot of the notes inside it. So Luca certainly knows his stuff. That book is incredible. Listed a lot of sessions that Paul did, when, where, who with, etc. And so I'm looking forward to his new book. Hey, it's Italiano. Ciao Luca. Come va? Bene? Fantastico. Anyway, back to this album, which is Paul McCartney's greatest solo album, Tug of War. You can't say Band on the Run because it's not solo. You can't. It's cheating. Next track after Wanderlust is Get It. A nice little ditty there with Carl Perkins. Carl Perkins, you may be aware, that wrote Blue Suede Shoes, which Elvis did. Quite a popular song. Matchbox, which the Beatles covered and Paul used to do a lot in sound checks. And in fact, Paul covered another of his tracks on Run Devil Run. Is it Coquette? Is it about riding a donkey or something? Coquette. I haven't played Run Devil Run for a while. I shall have to play it and refresh myself. So that track, I forgot what it's called. You gotta get it. Now, it's a beautiful song. Again, I say it about all the songs, don't I? Is it a great song? Not brilliant, but it's a cute little song. But it's only Paul and Carl Perkins on it. But on it, they laugh at the end. And there's a reason they laugh. And apparently the reason is that when Paul and Carl were in Montserrat, a friend had a nice yacht or a boat, and they went out and ate on it at a buffet and everything. And Carl Perkins made a comment about how great the food was. How incredible. And there's a saying, I'm not going to say what it is, it contains a blasphemous word, and I don't know what happens on YouTube or whatever if they take you off for saying a naughty word that begins with S. I don't know. You just don't know what to say these days. Hang on, I just felt like plucking an E string like you do. So yeah, at the end of Get It, they're laughing because of what Carl Perkins said. So I presume, I haven't heard the sessions of it, but I presume for Get It, there's a version where Carl Perkins says it and they edit out what he's said. It'd be interesting to hear that. The next track is throwaway, nothing stuff, but Paul does this a lot, doesn't he? Be What You See, Link. And the lyrics are, and it's played with a vocoder, isn't it? Paul wanted to try out a vocoder, and it goes for 32 seconds. The one you wanted to be is now the one you see. The one you wanted to be is now the one you see. Or I can imagine that it's Paul singing that to John. That's how I see it. We've all got our different opinions, but that's how I see it. Next track, Dress Me Up as a Robber. Now this is so funky, so funky. You think this is a Stevie Wonder track, but it's not. But Dress Me Up as a Robber is 2 tracks, isn't it? It's Dress Me Up as a Robber and another song which I did write down about what it was linked to. Many times Paul takes 2 or 3 songs, puts them together, and with McCartney magic, it works, doesn't it? So Dress Me Up as a Robber. I can't remember. Forgive Me Love. I think it's Forgive Me Love, isn't it? I like that. Really funky. Again, I don't think Paul wouldn't have done that if he hadn't have worked around with Stevie. There's some brilliant songs on that. And I love the line, it doesn't make a difference what you want to do. Whichever way you look at it, I'm still in love with you. What's the point in changing when I'm happy as I am? Brilliant lyrics. It's a masterful album. And then onto the track Ebony, the closing track. Ebony, in fact, sorry, on that track you got Paul, Dave Mattox is doing drums and percussion, Denny, George Martin's playing piano, backing vocals, Paul and Linda. Ebony and Ivory, the closing track, is probably one of my least favourite songs on the album, to tell the truth, because it gets heard so much. I mean, it's sentimental, it's syrupy, it's a bit soppy. The sentiment's good, you know. All you need is love is a bit sentimental, isn't it? Or Give Peace a Chance. You can look at many songs, or Pipes of Peace. Great song, great video, and that pushed this album into the stratosphere. Just trying to see if there's anyone else on there. You've got Paul, Stevie, and Linda's on it as well, doing backing vocals on it. Just having a look here to see some of the facts that I wrote about this. I may have told you this before, that it got British, Ebony and Ivory got a British Novello. Yeah, an Ivor Novello Award for International Hit of the Year. At the Grammys, it was nominated for Song of the Year, but lost out Rosanna's Toto. The single Ebony and Ivory made the top 10 Billboard R&B charts, which is unheard of. A white artist doing that. In fact, I think Paul might have been the last one until Mr. George Michael did it as well. What other facts have I got here? I think I said about Ebony and Ivory sold 500,000 in the UK and around 1 million in the US of A. So a massive selling single. So what are your thoughts on the album? Would you rate it as McCartney's best album? I'm saying solo albums. I don't count Ram. Basically, McCartney and McCartney 2 onwards up. In fact, even up to now. And if I had to try and think of just McCartney solo albums, my 3 favourites would probably be Tug of War, Flaming Pie, and Egypt Station. I do like McCartney 2, though I don't think it's got such quality tracks. And well, this is just reeks of quality in production. Every instrument, whether it be the drums, the horns, the percussion, the vocals, it just comes out, and that's down to George Martin and Jeff Emrick. I still like to see him perform a lot of these songs live. So what formats have you got? Have you got CDs? Have you got the remastered one? Have you got the archive? Have you got the coloured vinyl that come out? This deserves all the accolades and recognition it got. It was nominated for many awards, but didn't win any. I think it was nominated. Where's my notes for it? What else it was nominated? It was the 16th best-selling single in the UK. In 1982, sold over 100,000, and it sold 1 million in America. In France, 100,000. In Australia, Canada, and Spain, over 50,000. The Brits, Paul got best male vocalist, and also it won a Sony trophy for technical excellence. Again, down to George Martin and Sir George Martin and Jeff Emrick. It just reeks of quality and brilliance, and a man in shock, singing and writing beautiful tracks, surrounded by fantastic musicians, incredible friends, and in fact, it was his last American #1 until I'm going to get this wrong now. Is it Egypt Station? Was it Egypt Station? Was it McCartney 3? Whatever it was years before Paul had another solo #1 album in America. In England, Broad Street got to #1 as well, so it wasn't such a gap. But in America, it was many years. And after this, the follow-up album, Pipes of Peace, which everyone says, oh, it's just stuff left off Tug of War. It's not necessarily true. There were a few tracks left off Tug of War, but there was also some new tracks done. But it didn't achieve the heights with sales and everything for a long time. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this. So tell me what you think anyway of this album, Tug of War. Is it Paul's best? I think it is. I believe Mark Lewison says it's better than Band on the Run as well, though obviously that's Paul, Linda and Denny, and that's kind of classed as Wings, isn't it? It's not Paul McCartney. But as I say, definitely in my top 3 or 4 Paul McCartney albums ever released. I will be doing more features when I get the time. You know, time goes by, and I've got various things I'm going to do, and I might start doing a quiz now and then, as long as my throat lasts out, because the last few days I haven't been able to speak much. I know it's a good thing for the universe, me not speaking so much. So join our Facebook group, Coming Out the World of Paul McCartney and the Beatles. And if you own the 7-inch singles collection, then join that. But you can only join it if you've got the 7-inch singles collection. I do collect stuff, so you can always message me if you've got stuff that you want to sell, swap, or whatever. I collect lots of t-shirts. I've got loads of McCartney different t-shirts and jackets and things and like things that are quite special. I've got a lot of Jeff Emrick stuff, and I might do a feature on that as well. My hopes for this year, like everyone, we've got archive collections of London Town, Back to the Egg and Press to Play. Only 3, that's all we want. More than anything, we want Paul to play live. Of course, we've got the book coming out, and he's in the blink of an eye. What's it called? Behind the Lens? In the Ivor Storm? It's in the Ivor Storm, isn't it? That's coming out around Paul's birthday in June, so that'd be nice. Hopefully he'll do some promotions for it. So keep your eyes peeled for that. He won't be doing Glastonbury this year. It hasn't been announced playing for the King's coronation in a couple of weeks' time. I thought he'd be at that, but there's nothing been done. Will he pop at Eurovision in Liverpool? I don't know. Frankie Goes to Hollywood, though, so that's quite cool. But yeah, more than anything, we want Paul to tour. Would I like a new album? Yep, I'm sure we all would. But I want to see him play in concert. And also, what else would you like released? Whatever happened to what's the best Christmas film that was ever released? I forgot. Oh God, it's called Mary. It's a Wonderful Life. What's happened with the music to that? You always find that Paul goes quiet, and then before you know it, bang, 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 bang. Now, 2022 was a very, very good year, wasn't it? The stuff that we had released, the singles collection, plus the Revolver box set. So it was quite brilliant. But we're greedy. We always want more. And stuff still keeps being found. Look, for example, the Stowe concert that the Beatles played in April 1963 at the All Boys School in Buckinghamshire, not far from me. A tape found of that. Will that be released? I don't know. And I got this the other day. I will probably, in fact, I've got a couple of things recently. This is a lovely box set. I might do a feature on that. That's a Paul McCartney All the Best promotional box set. That's an item I got. And this. Oh, I thought the stuff was going to fall. This is incredible. I haven't even played it all. The Beatles Complete BBC Sessions. That's a 9 CD box set. Good old BBC. Right, I'm going to say goodbye. Ciao, adios, see ya, auf Wiedersehen, au revoir to you and you and you and you, but not you. So my name's Dino Vegetable. Thank you very much for watching. Please leave your comments. Please subscribe and tell everyone. And if you've got a YouTube page, let me know, because I like to look at the pages and see what's going on out there. Okay, till next time.